Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome once again to the Windward Buddhist Temple's virtual Dharma service. Today, we'll be having a remembrance service. This is our monthly remembrance service, remembering those loved ones who have passed away during the month of June. I will ring the Daiking, the large bell, each time a name is read, and then go immediately to the chanting of praises of the Buddha, which is found on page 112 of the Red Service Book. As usual, we'll begin the service with the Vandana and Ti-Sarana. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Abhidavus, Namandao, Namandao, Namandao. Namandao, Namandao, Namandao. Sadaichi Ikuta. Toshio Inaba. Shizue Yonamine. Tofu Miyamoto. Shines in great splendor, boundless, wondrous dignity, such the greatness of your light, beyond all comparison, brightness of the sun and moon, and the shining mani jewels, when compared to your brilliance, seem to us like black as ink. Tathagata's countenance transcends all comparison. The great voice of awakening resounds through the 10 quarters. Your precepts, learning, effort, meditation, wisdom are virtues beyond all compare, ultimate, supreme, and rare. Your deep meditation has fathomed all the Dharma sea to the limits and the depths of all things the Buddhas teach. Ignorance, anger, and greed, the world-honored one has none. Like a lion among men, measureless your great virtue. Vast are your great virtuous deeds, wisdom deep and so sublime. Your radiant luminous light shakes all the world's foundations. When I become a Buddha, equal to the Dharma King, I will transcend birth and death, liberating all beings. My giving, disciplined mind, precepts, patience, and effort, meditation, and wisdom shall be supreme, unsurpassed. I will attain Buddhahood, everywhere fulfill my vow, bringing to all those in fear great peace and tranquility. Though there are myriad Buddhas, beyond measure, beyond count, and great sages numberless, like the grains of Ganges sands, I will honor each of them, equally accepting none. Even more importantly, I will seek the supreme way. Even though all Buddha worlds are countless as Ganges sands, even though all lands and realms are boundless without measure, yet my light shall reach them all and illumine every place. Such shall be my perfect work, such my power infinite. When I attain Buddhahood, my land will be first and best, place of practice transcendent, its people sublime and rare, land equal to nirvana, beyond all comparison. With pity for everyone, I will carry all across, all who come from 10 quarters, to be born into my land, to attain pure joyful mind, peace and great tranquility. Be my witness, Buddha, please confirm my sincerity. Now that I have made my vows, I will strive to fulfill them. Buddhas of the 10 quarters, with your wisdom unhindered, may all of these honored ones know my deepest intention, even though my body must bear great pain and suffering, I will persevere and strive patiently without regret. The virtue of Amida's vow is shared equally by all, together attaining awakened mind. We are born in the land of peace. Namanda Vutsu Namanda Vutsu Namanda 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 Namanda. Today's reading is our pledge. Let's put our hands together in reverence. Reaching out to others, I will share a smile and gentle words, just like the Buddha, who always calls out with aloha. Breaking away from my greed, anger, and ignorance, I will try to live in peace and harmony. Just like the Buddha, who shares tranquility and kindness with all. Moving forward from self-centeredness, I will share a life of joy and sorrow with others, just like the Buddha, whose caring heart always embraces us. Realizing that I live because of others, I will strive to live life to the fullest with an attitude of gratitude, just like the Buddha, who promises to embrace us all. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Well, good morning once again, everyone, and welcome to the Windward Buddhist Temple's monthly Remembrance service. The monthly memorial service is a service that allows us to collectively observe a memorial service for our loved ones and pets who have passed away before us in the month that the service is held, regardless of the year. It is the tradition in Japan to have family memorial service in one's home, especially for the sequential services like the 49-day, first year, third year, and so forth. But in the United States, it is not practiced as much, although we welcome it as well as having private memorial services at the temple setting. Here in the Windward Buddhist Temple, we have monthly memorial services on either the third or fourth Sunday of the month, so that many people can gather and remember their loved ones together as a sangha. Now, and for the past year, we're having services online. This service, like all memorial services, are in memory of a loved one who have passed away. The reason and purpose for the service is for us, the ones who remain behind. It is our opportunity to remember and to honor our ancestors. The service gives us an opportunity to chant the sutras, but most of all, to give a spiritual offering in the memory of our loved ones. To place our hands together in kansho, bowing our heads, expressing humility and gratitude. Humility and gratitude are the reasons that we have memorial services. at remembrance services like these, or at private sequential services at the temple, columbarium, gravesite, or at your home. We are humbled by the reality of life and death, and we are grateful for what those that went before us have done for us and have given us and continue to give us in our daily lives. Let's put our hands together in reverence as I read these words from the Jodo Wasang. In the land of happiness, Shravakas, Bodhisattvas, human beings, and devas all possess luminous wisdom, and their body features and adornments are all the same. Namo Amidabutsu. Namandavats. In a Dharma talk given by a Reverend Hagyu during a choral fest several years ago on how songs affected the psyche of those around, started by him by singing a few bars of Happy Birthday, followed by Mihotoke ni Idakarete and Bridge Over Troubled Waters. As nostalgic as some of these songs are, they speak of an aspiration, one that we all have, to live this life, this one life that each of us have, in happiness and well-being, not only for ourselves, but for the sake of others as well. It is also an aspiration of the Pure Land, as described in the smaller or the Amida Sutra, one of the three principal Pure Land sutras of the Hongwanji. In it, Shakyamuni Buddha talks briefly about the glorious features of Amida and his land of bliss. He mentions that the Buddhas in the 10 directions praise Amida's virtue and urges all beings to accept this sutra in faith, and explains the method of attaining birth in his land. According to this sutra, if one is mindful of Amida and holds fast to Amida's name for 1 to 7 days, at the end of one's life, Amida and a host of sages will appear before this person to escort him or her to the Pure Land. The Buddha, in talking to his disciples, Sariputra, says that in that Buddha land, when a gentle breeze begins to blow, causing the arrayed jewel trees and decorative jewel nets to stir, they produce subtle, harmonious sounds. It is as if 100,000 musical instruments were played simultaneously. Everyone who hears these sounds becomes spontaneously mindful of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Sariputra, that Buddha land is filled with such splendor and adornments. In Buddhism, we talk a lot about happiness and suffering. In fact, the Buddha's first talk was on the subject of suffering. So when he became enlightened and then discovered the truth of our existence, he described it in the Four Noble Truths. He began his discourse by teaching that life is suffering, that there are specific causes of our suffering, and that we can overcome them. And there is a pathway that would lead to the cessation of our suffering. It is the Pali-Sanskrit word dukkha that has been loosely translated as suffering. It is the thought that our life is unsatisfactory that causes this, like an unbalanced wheel on a car. The stress, anxiety, the occasional panic attack, and the recurrent periods of frustration and irritability when one cannot get or achieve what one wants, or where I want it, that causes suffering. It is the three poisons in our life. But suffering is easy to understand, and maybe some of us actually may like suffering because it causes pity, and in a sense, feeling of entrapment of others, maybe even a feeling of superiority at times. But is happiness just the absence of suffering? And is the quest for happiness just a shallow, self-centered desire? Well, according to Reverend Gyome Kubose of the Buddhist Temple of Chicago, it seems as if all human history is a history of the struggle for the attainment of happiness. Well, what is happiness? A Dutch humanist and a Catholic priest by the name of Erasmus said that the better part of happiness is to wish to be what you are. André Gide, a French author and Nobel Prize winner in literature, said, "My happiness is to increase other people's happiness. To be happy myself, I need to be the happiest of all." It almost sounds like a Mahayana Buddhist. Well, someone asked Dr. Haneda, he was writing a paper on happiness, and he's comparing various religious definitions of happiness. He asked, "Could you give me a Buddhist definition?" Well, he answered, "If you can forget your individual happiness, that's the happiness that's defined in Buddhism. However, if you intentionally attempt to forget yourself or your happiness, you will not be able to do so. But if you encounter something more powerful than yourself, something more important than happiness, than your happiness, then you will be able to forget yourself and your happiness. From morning till night, we are concerned with our individual welfare, with questions such as, what should we eat? What should we wear? Many of us believe that our happiness depends on how successfully we satisfy those personal needs. But is it really the case that our happiness depends on that? No, I don't think so. Actually, the more self-centered we become, the less happy we become. So, who is an unhappy person? One who cannot forget himself, being always concerned about his individual happiness and welfare. Perhaps the Buddhist concept of hell symbolizes the condition in which one has only himself, only his self-concerns, such as what he should eat and what he should wear. A happy person, on the other hand, is one that forgets about himself, his individual happiness. That person is so fascinated with something outside of himself that he can forget himself. A lover is happy because he's thinking of his girlfriend, forgetting about himself. An artist is happy because he is absorbed in his creative activity, forgetting himself. In the context of Jodo Shinshu, the Bodhisattva spirit, or the spirit that aspires to take all sentient beings across first before doing so himself, is the spiritual basis of the Bodhisattva Dhammakara and of his vow that he become the Amida Buddha. The story of the Bodhisattva Dhammakara is found in the larger sutra, specifically in the Sambutsuge, or the praises of the Buddha, a chant that we just got through a little while ago. Dhammakara's vow is saying that if all sentient beings are not liberated, he will not seek liberation. In his vow, he is expressing his deepest aspiration to take all sentient beings across first, before doing so himself. Dhammakara was not concerned with his own liberation. He is concerned with the liberation of all sentient beings. But his being concerned with the liberation of all sentient beings is, in effect, his own liberation. You may have heard the story in the Contemplation Sutra of Ajatasattu, a king who killed his father to take the throne and further attempted to kill his mother. Although he did not kill her, he imprisoned her. He later felt tremendous remorse for his transgressions. Spiritual teachers could not cure him, and so he went to see Jivaka, who was a physician, who advised him to go and see Shakyamuni Buddha. On his way, the king asked Jivaka if he could ride on the same elephant with him, because he feared that he might fall off the elephant, die, and go to hell. The king then said to Jivaka, "Well, please hold on to me. Keep me from falling. For I have heard in the past that the person who has attained the way does not fall into hell." While the king was traveling to see Shakyamuni, he learned of Shakyamuni's words, "For the sake of Ajatasattu, I will not enter nirvana." Jivaka told the king that although Shakyamuni was concerned with the welfare of all sentient beings, he was particularly concerned about people like Ajatasattu who have committed evil. Having heard about the compassionate heart of Shakyamuni, the king was deeply moved. And recognizing the remarkable contrast between Shakyamuni's mind and his own mind, deeply concerned about his own welfare, the king became ashamed of himself. After meeting Shakyamuni and having received his teachings, the king experienced liberation and awakened the bodhisattva spirit. He then came up with this extraordinary statement: "World honored one, if I can thoroughly destroy the evil minds of sentient beings, it is all right with me if I dwell in Avicii hell, constantly for innumerable kalpas, undergoing great suffering for the sake of sentient beings. I would not consider it pain." Avicii hell, by the way, is the lowest level in the realm of hell. So at first, when the king was concerned only with his individual welfare, he was afraid of falling into this so-called hell. But now, when he had awakened to the bodhisattva spirit, he was concerned for the welfare of all sentient beings, forgetting his own welfare. Likewise, before Shinran met Honen, his extensive practices did not enable him to attain Buddhahood, and was frustrated, depressed, and miserable. When he met Honen, he saw in him the bodhisattva spirit of Dhammakara. Honen was concerned with the happiness of all sentient beings, forgetting his own happiness. Listening to Honen, Shinran realized his deep mistake of thinking about his own individual happiness. He was reminded of Ajatasattu and that he was just like him. Shinran saw in Honen the innermost aspiration. Shinran considered the power of the innermost aspiration the most important thing in Buddhism, a power that could bring about spiritual change in human beings and could make them fulfill their lives. This is the power that Shinran refers to as a power beyond self, or tariki, other power, and the inconceivable power. A high level of happiness comes from knowledge and wisdom gained from studying the Dharma. When we truly understand and can start to incorporate the teachings of impermanence, dependent origination, or pratitya samutpada, karma or action, into our daily thoughts and actions, we are on the path to happiness and enlightenment. Understanding the Dharma is one thing, but putting it to use is quite a different thing. I get my buttons pushed all the time. Or rather, I push my own buttons all the time. I fall back into my old ways of reacting to stressful situations that I actually create myself. The highest level of happiness is not gained by wanting happiness for ourselves, but rather concern about the happiness of others. When we are concerned with our own happiness, we tend to think and act in ways that will actually cause our own suffering because of our own self-centeredness. Here is a quote: "Whatever joy there is in the world, all comes from wanting others to be happy. Whatever suffering there is in the world comes from wanting ourselves to be happy. Buddhas work for the benefit of others. ordinary people work for the benefit of themselves and just look at the differences between them. Kumose says that true happiness is not given to us. We create it. If you are unhappy, do not blame others or the environment. It is your mind, your attitude that makes you miserable. The right attitude and a clear and right mind are the ways to happiness. Finally, from a Lilihoa High School athlete, Gwen Maiha, happiness is not something already made, she says. It comes from your own actions. Score 1 for the OIA. Thank you all for listening. And please put your hands together in reverence once again. In the land of happiness, Shravakas, Bodhisattvas, human beings, and divas all possess luminous wisdom, and their body features and adornments are all the same. Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda Butsu, Namanda Butsu. We will conclude today's service with the Gatha Diamond Faith, followed by the Nembutsu. Namo Amida, Namo Amida, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida, Namo Amida Butsu. Listen to the Buddhist teaching, even if you must take time out from your daily business. To believe that you will listen when you have some spare time is shallow thinking. There is no tomorrow in listening to the teachings. Renyo Shonin. Namanda. Thank you very much for attending this virtual Dharma service today, and hope to see you again next Sunday as we celebrate or observe our annual Obong service. A special guest speaker at that time will be Reverend Alan Urasaki. Thank you very much. Take care and goodbye.